Hello. Welcome to the Someday is Today podcast, where we talk about how to live one's best life by sharing the experiences that I'm having, talking about the lessons I've learned along the way, the things that I'm focused on, and how I'm on this journey to redesign my life to make it what I want. My name is Bola Adina. For those who are still with us and who've been with us since episode 1, welcome. And for new listeners, welcome. If you are just listening for the first time, I would advise going back to the earlier episodes just to get a sense for who I am, where I am on my journey, and the purpose of this podcast. And what I'll say is, at the moment, the purpose continues to be a journey of self-discovery as I look to sort of shift my perspective as well as my living experiences and how I view the world into seeing it a different way completely. So it's been a month or so since I did the last podcast, and the reason I've been away primarily has been because I was on vacation. So August, so I want to say on August 19th, that was about 4 weeks ago, I left Maryland to drive to New Jersey to drop my children there, as well as Connecticut, to drop the older two there so that we could leave, my husband and I, on a trip to Europe. The plan was to be away for about 3 weeks with friends and family, and we wanted to do 3 countries in Europe. So we knew it was going to be a daunting experience. It was going to be difficult just logistically, and I'll get into all the things that we got into. But I'm happy to report that as massive an undertaking as it seemed at the time and I think we began planning for this like around January. And at the time it seemed like something crazy, like who leaves for about 3 weeks to go to 3 different countries. I don't even know how many cities. I want to say about 7 or 8 or so on a limited budget, even though while we were there, it didn't seem like we were reminded of that fact, but it was on a limited budget. And the idea was really just to have fun, create memories, and spend time not only with each other, my husband and I, but really with the people that we love who are near and dear to our hearts. So it was a daunting experience. And like I said, last month we left not knowing what was awaiting us. And after dropping the children off, we took off to Portugal. That was going to be our first stop. And it was my friend and I, my friend Remy and her husband, myself and my husband. So we started off in Lisbon. Now, how we got to Lisbon, so let me just backtrack and set the stage for why we decided to take this trip. On July 13, my husband turned 40, and one thing that he wanted was a trip to Europe. I'm not sure exactly if he had a place in mind, but I know he definitely wanted to travel somewhere. My brother was also turning 40. He turned 40 a week or 2 earlier. So my sister-in-law and I were trying to figure out what could be the best way to celebrate them, and we wanted to do it jointly. So we quickly arrived at the idea of taking a vacation to Europe without the kids. And initially, it was going to be a 5-night, 6-day trip to Italy. So there's a group that we've traveled with in the past. It's called Young Blacks Travel. You know, nowadays there are lots of groups out there that do tours for young Black people who are traveling around the world. So this was a trip that we thought logistically everything has been planned, so it's probably easier for us to just hop on the trip. For one reason or the other, we weren't able to get about, I want to say 20 to 25 people in our group onto the trip. So we decided to create our own trip, which then gave us the flexibility to expand to other countries and sort of design the tours and the experiences as we wanted it. And then, of course, me being in the space that I am, you know, I got I don't want to say selfish per se, but I got excited about all the other places we could travel to. So I started adding more to the list. So it went from going to visit the Amalfi Coast and spending some days in Naples and doing Positano, Capri, etc., to, visiting Greece as well. I had heard great things about Greece. I'd always wanted to go. Loved the white and blue color combo of the islands, and really just wanted to go experience it. So I figured, Greece wasn't too far from Italy, so we might as well add that to the list. When I brought this idea to my sister-in-law, I think because they're in New Jersey, and given the timing of the children going to school, and also maybe just the logistics just being too much, she opted out. But we invited a group of friends that we traveled to Spain with last year, so they were down for the trip. So they were going to do Greece and Italy with us. So at this point, it was now a group of 8 who were traveling to Greece and Italy. So as I went to book our flight, the cheapest flight I could find was Air Portugal. And I may need to do a separate episode just specifically on Air Portugal and how horrible the experience was, or how it turned out to be. But at the time, I had no idea. What they offered when I booked the flight with them was, number one, the lowest fare that we could find. So we thought that was amazing. They were leaving from Newark, New Jersey to Rome, Italy. So we got on it, and by far, the cheapest flight of all the other ones that we were looking at. And then to top it off, they offer... Air Portugal does this thing where they're looking to drive more tourism to their country. So for those who are flying Air Portugal, you have the opportunity to do a layover, I guess what's called an extended layover for up to 5 days in Portugal. And we thought, how amazing. This is another opportunity to visit a different country than the other 2. And at this point, the only thing we would have to worry about would be lodging and, whatever we decided to do. So I jumped on the opportunity, booked the flight. So the itinerary ended up being, we flew to Lisbon. We had a layover, spent some time there. We would get back in Lisbon, fly to Rome, which would be the final leg of that initial tour. And then from there, fly to Greece and, explore Greece, fly back from Greece to Rome, find our way to Naples, and then meet up with the rest of the group who were set to join us about a week or so into our trip. And at this point, it would be a group of, I want to say, 12 additional people, making about 19 or so people when everyone was together. So that was exciting. And luckily, my dear friend Remy decided to come with us on all the legs. So she was going to do Portugal, Greece, and Italy with us, which was just amazing. So we left, flew to Lisbon, and I think to start off, and it may have been that I was in a funky mood. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I think the highlight of Lisbon was less the country and really just the company we were with. So one takeaway, and I'll just sprinkle these takeaways throughout this episode. One takeaway that I kind of learned right off the bat is if you're going to travel, it's so important to travel with people that you vibe and gel with. And that can mean whatever, people who are on your same pace when it comes to the types of tours you want to do, how casual you want to move, the types of food you want to eat, your laid back personality. If there's some days you just want to chill and do nothing, you just want to make sure that you find people who are on your same wavelength, but also people that you just enjoy. So if it turns out that the country or the tours or the food or the experience is less than ideal, at the very least, the trip is not a waste because you're getting to build and bond and strengthen relationships with people that you love. And that really was the case here. I mean, even though Portugal, aside from the shenanigans that we had to experience with Portugal Airlines, and Portugal itself, at least Lisbon, wasn't necessarily all that interesting. I felt like it was we went to Barcelona last year, and I felt like, as most European cities, it had somewhat of a similar feel and look-ish. But, if Barcelona was on a 10 for us, I want to say Lisbon was probably a 1 or 2. And perhaps it's because we had gone to Barcelona and that messed up the experience for us. I'm not sure, but I just think, if I'm looking back and assessing it correctly, I think Lisbon is just now up and coming with its tourism industry. The food wasn't great, and some of the tours were okay. And also just the scenery in general is a little aged and wasn't as interesting. Let me pause here and welcome Mack to the show. Hi, Mack.
Good podcast listening time. Good for everyone who's there.
And Mack, by the way, for those who don't know, is my husband, and he is also the birthday boy that sort of was at the center of this trip. He was the one that we were being celebrated, one half of the duo that we were celebrating. So
All
yeah,
right.
what was your thought of Portugal? What made it less than ideal?
Okay, so, I think I always say this, that one of the more intimate things that you could do is have dinner. And that always strikes people as weird. But, if you think about it, people eat at the dinner table. They have family over, they have friends over, and you're all laughing and like you're enjoying the meal and you're having a good time with your friends. So it's really something that I find to be intimate. So like food and traveling is always a top priority, and the food was just not good. And the thing is, we were really hesitant to just decide that the food wasn't good. So we kept giving Lisbon, shot after shot. It's like, okay, maybe it was a restaurant that we went to. Let's try another one. Let's do this again. And it just was not what we expected. We were expecting more of the Mediterranean style, the flavors coming in from Africa and from all over the Mediterranean, but we weren't getting that. It was very bland, and it's a lot of fish that's even imported from elsewhere. Yeah. So, and the thing is, what's interesting is, again, like I said, we were hesitant to just label it as just bad, but I spoke to someone who actually also traveled to Lisbon. They lived in France for a little bit, and they said they're Portuguese descent. Not that means anything. They're American, but they traveled to Lisbon as well. They went to both Porto and Lisbon. We didn't get to go to Porto, but they also did not like the food. So now I feel like, okay, we are vindicated.
And that's actually the case, because I've spoken with other people about that, and apparently, for whatever reason, Lisbon is known for not having good cuisine. Like, that's a general sentiment, at least amongst the people that I've spoken with. So, yes, so you're right. I think we're vindicated in our assessment. And just to give the listeners maybe a high-level understanding of what the food was like, I think, if I remember correctly, like you said, lots of fish, but the fish was never cooked well, seasoned well. It just always tasted very bland. The cheese, which was probably something that was more tolerable, sometimes just had a different taste and smell to it, to the point where the pizza that we got just was not enjoyable either. And then lastly, they did a lot of cod, and the cod was always, it reminded me of fish sticks in America, where it's battered, fried. So when they're serving it at the restaurants, it's not really cooked to order or just fresh. It's really something that it seemed like they grabbed it out of the microwave and then served it up, which just was never appetizing. But overall, the food was not great. And, so let's, aside from the food, how else did you find the city?
Yeah, so the whole entire city looks like it's under construction. They're refacing everything. They're going through a process of, I guess, rebuilding and revamping the entire city. So that's one thing. It just, I didn't necessarily also feel like it was as architecturally scenic as Spain was. It was
I said it looked more like prison architecture.
Prison architecture.
So just big, massive buildings with very small, tiny windows to look out of, and the buildings look run down. So something you would see in the U.S., where people are held against their will.
So yeah, I mean, and I also felt like the people were also much more. I'm just talking in terms of like how they look and the kind of people that were there. I just felt like Spain was a lot more diverse. So again, it was more because before I went to Spain, I had never been to Europe, and one of the reasons was because I just always thought of Europe as being bland and bleak and gray, not your vibrant, colorful type of places that you would find around the world in the southern hemisphere for the most part. But so I never traveled to Europe, and going to Spain, I was pleasantly surprised, and I was hoping, especially since I had heard other people who had been to Lisbon in Portugal, that they had a good time, that I was hoping that...
Hype Portugal up. Yeah, a lot of people do. And I wonder if it's because they're having success from if the country is trying to push tourism, so there's a narrative that's being created and people are just hopping onto it. But recently I've been hearing a lot of people talk about Portugal wanting to visit, or maybe visiting and coming back and loving it. So I'm not sure what's going on, but this is definitely Portugal's time, and you could sense it because of all the construction you were talking about, Mac. I just felt like it was overhyped and they under-delivered overall, right?
Yeah, it's precisely what I was hoping not to get in the European city. So Portugal is, Lisbon and Portugal are not going to be on the list for a revisit.
Yeah. But I will still say, though, we had an amazing time. And I think, let's go back to what I was saying before about why it's important, if you're going to travel, to just make sure you're traveling with people that you enjoy, people that you want to be around. So even if the city or the place turns out to be shitty and all that, not all that interesting, you're still having an amazing time. Because I felt like we had a really good time in Portugal.
Yes. Alcohol always helps the process along. So one of the things that we did was stay dehydrated, because our drink of choice was always whatever alcohol we were drinking. Yes. Oh, I mean, but there's one thing that I must say about Lisbon is...
You enjoyed the music. What was that called?
The music. It's fado music.
Fado.
So we actually went...
Explain that a bit, yeah. What's fado?
Yeah. Okay, explain. I did actually look it up, and now, I really don't remember enough to give justice to the history of it. But I mean, it's basically Portugal's like historical music. It's sort of like... it's usually played in a bar, and we have some videos that we have posted on Instagram. But in a bar, it's usually very darkly lit, like all the lights are off, and everyone is just sitting around. You eat some food, and then there's a guitarist playing, and then there's one guy who is usually a guy. I don't know if I've seen too many women, but I think the one we went to was a guy, and I've seen a couple of other guys, and they're just crooning, and it's beautiful. The voices are beautiful, and we got a chance to go and visit one of those fado restaurants where they played that, and it was an interesting story for that one too. But I don't know if we want to get into it.
I can quickly. We'll do it at a high level without getting too detailed, but just quickly, fado. Looking on Wiki, the trusty Wiki, says fado is a form of music characterized by mournful tunes and lyrics, often about the sea or the life of the poor, and infused with a sentiment of resignation, faithfulness, and melancholy. I don't know if I got all that from listening to it. I think I was too overwhelmed.
You don't understand the language.
I didn't understand the language, but I think I was too annoyed by whatever crappy food we were served once again after the host, who basically dragged us into the club to come listen to fado. After he promised us all sorts of amazing food, what he delivered, let me just say, fell short of my expectations. So that was where the night began to fail us.
To be honest, though, that was the only food we had with any amount of salt in it. It was actually over-salted, but it was actually one of the few times we actually had seasoned food.
But it was the same nasty cod, fried cod, with their over-salted rice. I think it was just plain rice and salt for Nigerians, which is a no-no, because it's like, what happened to the sauce? Where's the obe? It's not good. And then the guy started playing music, but then the night went downhill because some of us started getting sick. Meaning some of us had a little too much to drink, so we had to bail earlier than expected. We're not going to put people's business out there, but let's just say the night came to a screeching halt very quickly because we left Amrina. Yeah. I'm laughing because I felt slightly embarrassed and uncomfortable because I felt like the only black people in the space.
There was one other black woman there. I think wasn't there a black woman who actually like kind of told us. I think either she was the setup
girlfriend, of the guy
who told us to come in.
When we walked in and we're deciding if we were going to go in or not, she was like, "Oh my God, this is so great! The food is amazing. This is the best spot. The guy is wonderful." Now, the reason why the night turned out to be even shittier than when we had to leave because we had been drunk.
But before you go, before you get off of that, us being the only black people or one of the few, we are a group, and as compared to like the one black lady. But
yeah,
we're a group, and like one by one, we just started leaving the place. So it could have appeared as if we're like walking out on a check. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like
one by one. But yeah, I think one by one, it started dawning on us that, yeah, we had taken more than we could handle alcoholically and otherwise. So we had to bounce. And then Remy's husband, luckily, was responsible enough to stick around and not have drinking too much, or he doesn't drink. So he sat there, and I'm sure he was just thinking, what is going on with these fools that I'm sitting here and now having to babysit grown people? But he ended up being stuck with the bill, I guess is why the night turned out even shittier, because by the time he came back, I forget how much he said the guy charged for his crappy food.
So it was $30 a head, which is, I remember us.
Was it $30 for him?
$30, yeah. So we paid 120 total. He paid 120
euros, 120 euros. And I think the reason why I was so annoyed by this is because the man served us salty rice and fish sticks. So in my mind, because generally in the States, when you go into
was it fish stick or freaking crackers? I remember crackers.
But I'm saying like the horrible cod, fish, whatever, the fried. It was not good. But the point is, it was like a plate. Anyways, if you give me a bill for $150 in the U.S. after serving me salty rice and fish sticks, I mean, it's just not going down. It's not happening. And I think also because they didn't disclose to us that we were going to be paying that, that it was per head. And, we just thought we were coming to listen to music and we'll pay for the food that we eat and keep it moving. No, not that we were coming in to listen to music, just coming into a bar like you typically would in the state. Anyways, the point is, just be careful when you go to Portugal before you agree to do anything. I mean, I feel like Portuguese people reminded me of Nigerians, in which you could be hustled and had at any given point.
This is the narrative that's going on still. It was a narrative that went on like we felt like we were robbed. But the thing is,
being hustled.
No, I don't. Okay, so I had looked up because I did a lot of the planning for the excursions that we did, and one of the things that I wanted to do was a Fado excursion. And if you look up the excursions, they're around that price for listening to Fado.
Not for going into a club and music happens to be playing. Well, I want to be a part of agreeing to you digging into my pocket for $150. I want to be a part of that process. You need to be very clear before I step into your establishment how much this is going to be and what I'm signing up for. You don't think?
Well, I mean, if it's their assumption that that everyone is aware that this is your general asking price for listening to Fado, because they're probably not aware that you don't know. So it's like not the thing that they go around saying, remember, it's $30. So, I mean, 30 euros or whatever. But anyways, the point is that it's not out of market value. So, like, I know that we didn't know, but that's basically
we literally
what it was.
stayed there for 5 minutes. We didn't even enjoy the music. I mean, there were so many things that went wrong here. Number one, it was not communicated to us that we were going to pay for sitting at a bar and you gave us crappy food. We didn't even stick around to listen to music because by the time the guys started playing, you know, I had to exit, Remy had to exit, and you exited shortly after. So I think maybe in total I listened to like 2 minutes worth of music and then had to go. But the point is, I just feel like I felt like I got. I felt like, you know, they got us in because we're travelers and tourists. So that's also something else you have to be on the lookout for. Just make sure, don't assume anything. Don't assume things operate the way they do in your country or, you know, from other experiences that you've had. Just always ask before you go in so that you're not getting got. Anyways, that was another reason why Portugal did not rank highly on my list.
So the best part of Portugal was probably going outside of Lisbon to Sintra.
Because you had been looking for pina colada.
Well, I mean, that's not why it was good, because their pina coladas suck too.
Their pina coladas.
I mean, I don't know what the hell that was. That wasn't pina colada. It was some kind of weird drink. Well, they made up for it because I had them put double and triple shots of rum in it. So at least, we were having a good time as usual. But, we had a whole day trip to Sintra, and we went to like this old castle, and I probably should remember a little bit more about what it is, but old castle was like really scenic. It was like, I think it was like King Ferdinand the something, his castle.
It's one of those old European dynasties. The castle was interesting, but I think what was more interesting just was the general scenery. It was in the mountains. It reminded me of, what was that place in Spain that we went to? I
want to say Monteverde, but
that's
I
from
don't know
Costa Rica.
Oh, you're right. I don't remember.
So what you'll notice is we experience these things, but our memories, the way they're structured, we don't always remember the names.
That's why you take pictures.
That's why we got pictures, and we may be able to make up for it by posting later. But yes, it was beautiful. But I think once again, it was beautiful. And after we were done with the tour, we went to this, was it kind of like an open sort of market area? It reminded me of Eastern Market type of space in D.C., where there are different bars and different places you could go to. You could walk around and you could eat, sit down. It was great weather. Yeah, the beach was right there. Yeah. So that was actually a good day. That was a good day. But once again, I think the food didn't make it. The scenery was okay. But I think, what made it was that we were with great people having a good time. So anyways, and then lastly, to wrap up our time in Portugal, when we were thoroughly done with all things Portuguese food and everything, we were hungry one time. We didn't want to experience any more Portuguese food, so we were looking to get something different. So we stumbled.
Which reminds me, right before that, though, I think that's where, so we went to this thing called the Abandoned Restaurant. One of my Uber drivers had told me about that. I mean, there's a lot of different things, and we got to get to, are we only doing a podcast on this? Because
I think so, because it's now 30 minutes into the...
Because, I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about. But it was my Uber driver told me about this restaurant that was starting. They ran out of money. And once they ran out of money, they abandoned it. And so it became basically like a skate park where people come in and skate there. And, like, they graffitied it up. But it's also, the reason he recommended it is also a great place to catch a complete view of the city. And so we went out there. That was also a nice little experience. We took pictures and, had a good time there.
This is the one that you made us walk like 2 or 3 miles up a hill.
There was no way. There was no, actually I kind of, okay, so we took the bus though. We didn't have you don't remember we took the bus from where we were? Like, we went to the pastry place.
Okay, yeah, we went to the oldest pastry
place
in Portugal.
Spot
Once
in Portugal.
again, overhyped and not good. It's almost as if they don't believe in sugar and fluffy pastry. I can't. It was so chewy.
It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that
I don't
good.
remember exactly what it was that was their main thing. Like everybody was standing in line. This is one of those.
There was a bowl
things
of
like,
pastry.
Is that what it's called? Well, no, there was a bowl of pastry, but the one that everybody really was looking for, like their main.
Classique.
Is that what it's called?
That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Do you
we're not
remember
there.
what that was? That was like, it reminded me of. Was it kind of like Puff Puff?
No, it was like the one that's it's like a rounded thing with like a pudding.
Oh yeah,
in
that's
the
what
middle,
it was.
and then
Pudding
like
in
it
the
was
middle.
pretty flaky on the outside. The crust was pretty flaky, and
But
so
the
you bite
pudding
into
itself was not good. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. Let me just say. But apparently that's the way. And the lines were around they were out around the corner. It's kind of like Georgetown cupcakes in the U.S. and D.C. where people are just standing in line trying to get in. But once you finally got in, I was just like, okay, I mean, whatever. The point is, human beings do a lot of funny things. We're very funny people. For you to be standing in line for something that I think we can all agree was not great was so interesting to me. But whatever. Anyways, after that,
you don't know that it's not great. Besides,
yeah, you just want to be able to say, "Yep, I went there." I guess it's for the conversation value. I guess for me,
we're just
what
passing
most of
time.
life is about. I guess
We're just passing time.
All right, so we went there.
Well, on Earth.
But and then after that, we went to the abandoned building where you made us walk and got unnecessary, or we were.
It was a good exercise.
Yeah, we got exercise. But the building, the abandoned building was great. And then afterwards, we had worked up a hunger. So we were looking for food and could not tolerate any more Portuguese food. So we went to their downtown, or I don't remember exactly where. It was a nice area. They had lots of different foods and everything. So we're just asking people around, where can we find a different type of food? So we ran into some Africans who were like, oh, yeah, you want African food? We'll take you to get African food. So they're taking us around. And then finally took us to this salon where people do hair. And we're like, okay, well, this doesn't look like a restaurant. Come to find out, these fools were trying to get their people to, was it cook for us? I mean, I don't even know. It was so random.
Listen, I was
I
I didn't know what the heck was going on. I have no. Like, he took us to a hair salon to get African food, so maybe it was like a home cooked meal. I don't listen. I had no idea what the hell was going on.
I'm just, all I know is the hustling spirit is strong in Portugal. Is all I know, because you ask for one thing, they waste your time trying to get you something else. But anyways, we were like, okay, thanks but no thanks, and found us a good old Chinese restaurant. And the Chinese restaurant
we're like, oh, are you going to go to Portugal to get Chinese food? Is like,
but let's
we're in
describe
the US.
the Chinese restaurant. Though. This
Chinese
is not P.F. Chang's Chinese restaurant, which is, you would argue, is still somewhat fast food. This is not a high scale. This is like your hole in the wall hood Chinese restaurant. Mm-hmm. Where generally
they
when
make
you
good food.
Generally when you're traveling, I don't even eat Chinese food typically in the States. Like, I am that snobbish against Chinese food. Like, I don't enjoy it. I don't eat it. Too many options. But I mean, we're talking about like a hole in the wall, ghetto ass Chinese restaurant, and probably the best thing we had in Portugal. I mean, it was so good. I can't. I think that was probably one of my best moments.
Yeah, that was
in Portugal.
That was the Chinese food. Well, I don't know if it was the best moment, but it was definitely.
Babe, remember all the food we ordered?
Yeah, it was good.
It was so good.
It was the best food.
So another lesson: please don't turn up your noses on good old Chinese food when you're in a foreign country, because they know how to come through. They came through swinging, great food. We ordered some more to go. I mean, we were just in heaven because we hadn't eaten good food for like a good 3-4 days. So that was how we wrapped it up. And I'm looking at the time now. We're like 40 minutes into this. So I think we should just wrap this up and just use it as a episode of Portugal only. So let's just talk about, if you would talk about your lessons learned or your key takeaways from
Portugal only?
From Portugal and the experience, like one of my highlights, before you go in, one of my highlights was when we stayed in after the debacle of the night before and played cards.
Yes.
Right? So we were in this Airbnb, and Portugal had turned out to be somewhat disappointing. So we're like, we're not going anywhere.
That's the same night. That's the same Fado night, though. That
it was the same. This was before. This was the prelude to the debacle of the Fado. So we stayed in, and we played cards, and we played. We played spades. Mm-hmm. This was where we taught our friends, Remy and her husband IB, how to play spades, and I think Remy and I were on the same team, and the men were on another team.
Battle of the sexes.
And the women thoroughly whooped their asses.
No, we won.
No, you didn't.
Yes, we did. We lost in the other game, the subsequent game in Santorini, which is going to be for another episode. But we won.
Did you? Okay, so that means you came back.
We came back
because Remy reneged. That's what it was.
But she said sorry.
So we're doing a lot of inside joke here. So obviously because we were teaching them. So Remy and IB had never played spades. So we were teaching them. So the first couple of rounds, we would say, okay, we'll let this pass because let's say you do something that you're not supposed to do in spades. We'll let it pass because you learn on the go. And clearly we had talked about not reneging. And anyone who plays spades understands the concept of reneging. It's you playing a separate suit when you actually have the suit that was played, but making everybody believe that. Yeah, so we're not going to But the point is, when you now whip out the suit that you should have played, that you gave people the impression that you didn't have, that's called reneging, which gives you, there's a lot of penalty that then happens. So they take away a lot of your cards, whatever. This is not an episode of explaining spades. But the point is, the women were well ahead. I think that was our last hand or last two hand to win.
We weren't well ahead.
Babe,
if you were
you guys were pitiful. You guys were pitiful.
Hey, no.
It was not good.
We won.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
But anyways, so Remy reneged. I don't know what she was thinking, but she reneged, and that took away probably a good 70 points when we were well ahead. And that's what, and I told her, so this is what Mack was referencing. I said, because a lot of times if you do something and you say sorry, I think people should understand that it's a mistake and just overlook it. And Remy did say sorry. She said sorry, but they took away the points.
Ain't no sorries in spade. Give me my book.
So I was very confused because, just out of, being a reasonable human being, if you apologize for your mistake, people are supposed to, let it go. But these fools weren't. So it was what it was. But it was fun. I mean, overall, like I said, Portugal, but when people ask me, which part of the leg was the best, I remember our time in Portugal fondly. I thought it was an amazing start to our trip. I do. I thought it was an amazing start to our trip, and I think it's because of the people that we were with. So we really it was laid back. It was chilled.
Was dope too.
Obviously, but the point that I'm trying to make is I remember all the legs differently because it had different energy. So to wrap it up, another takeaway is if you're traveling, make sure, I've already said, travel with a group of people that you just want to spend time with so that no matter what happens, you're still having a good time. Be open to Chinese food when you travel because I think Chinese food always comes through. Everywhere. And then luckily we had a deck of cards with us. So we were able to, even if you're not partaking and experiencing the city, if you're enjoying the group of people you're with, you could still play a nice game of, cards, spades, or whatever, and still have a good time. And I would say, just being able to build and bond over cards was also very interesting, and I enjoyed that. So what were your takeaways?
I mean, the card game, was definitely special. Both times we played card games, we had everybody involved. It was one of the, things that we can do to make sure everybody was participating. We tried for a couple of times to go out and to experience
the
nightlife, and didn't go down for one reason or another. One time being that we all overdid it.
Over pre-gamed is what's going on here.
Over pre-gamed. Let's see.
So that could be another lesson. Do not over pregame.
Yeah, pace. Pace is definitely, pacing yourself is definitely.
Especially when you're not eating. Because I think that probably was also what did it, is we didn't have good, like, healthy food in our stomach. So overdoing it was just not going to fly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like, well, okay, so let me tell you, I mean, okay, so this is, again, about how alcohol just makes things better, but, like, one of the first tours we did was a food tour, and this is, like,
oh, my God.
You know, because like I said, I planned the tours and everything, and I had to hear it all the time about how this was bad, but this was before
the tour was not good.
We had accepted how terrible Portuguese or Lisbon or Portuguese food was. And so, you know, we got onto this tour, and everybody's like, I thought it was going to be a lot of food too, because I'm like, yeah, we don't need to eat yet. Like,
it was a food tour.
It's a food tour. Like,
right.
We won't have dinner. We don't have all types of things to eat. Thankfully, these other characters, because we had separated for a little bit, and then they went to eat, and so they had eaten. And because the food tour was more like snack tour, like we didn't really, you know, had cheeses, little balls of cotton, whatever the case may be, but the one thing that was great about that tour is the copious amounts of wine that was being doled out. And so I don't know about everybody else, but I was lit. I was having a great time.
And we met some great people. This is where you met.
Oh, that's true. I met a guy from an attorney in New York who was called in to handle the El Chapo case. You know, I got his information as well. So, you know what I'm saying? That was interesting.
That is.
So yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, so alcohol and definitely good friends who are about fun. You know, like let's party, let's do some things.
So even if you do
fun.
find yourself on a food tour with no food, just have a good time with it. So I would say the takeaway there is, you know, definitely do a tour. I usually, when I travel to countries, I just typically don't do tours. In the past, I hadn't done them, or excursions, because I just find them to be something you overpay for. But I think for the experience, you know, because otherwise you're looking for your own activity and trying to. So if you're only trying to do your own thing, it could become monotone. But I think all of the tours we did in all the different countries kind of provided like different sort of anchor points to where we were, I felt, right? So and also you meet interesting people along the way. So you get to engage the other tourists, find out where they're from. You could strike up a good conversation, get to know them. So I would say, you know, a lot of the tours are expensive. I mean, for what we paid for the food tour, and I don't know how much we paid because Mack did all the planning, and to not get any food, I probably will have been annoyed
I don't
to
even
begin
remember
with.
How much it was.
But
it wasn't
I think the experience of meeting other people, walking around, and just using, it's kind of like going on a field trip where, you know, little badass kids are acting up on the trip is really, you know, when you're in high school is, you know, well, maybe not high school. Hopefully high school students aren't doing that. Middle school.
They're doing it.
But that's essentially what it was. On all these tours, I had no idea. I can't tell you one thing I took away because I just was not paying attention.
Well, I mean, that's the case. Like, I've never been, I said this to multiple people on the tours that we've been, I have never been on one of those tours where I really remember what the hell the history is that you're talking about. Like, from my perspective, it's something that you do because it's, you A, don't want to have to plan it. You B, don't know the things that you should know to go. I mean, not that I learned mostly anything, but you don't know what you should go and see unless you are, you know, a buff of that region and you already know those things and you're planning it. You don't know. And then lastly, it's having the ability to talk to somebody else, like to other people, but also someone who knows the city. And, you know, you might not necessarily ask about what the tour is. You might ask, okay, so what's a good place to eat? You know, like when we did the bike tour in Greece, or, you know, so you know, someone from the city that you can talk to about other things you're curious about and who might tell you stuff like, you know, go to the abandoned restaurant or something like that.
Yeah. So overall, that's a wrap for Portugal. Had a great time. I think we'll have to save the other two legs of the trip for another episode. But the trip just got more and more epic as we went along, to the point where we were just like, I think we're overdoing it.
Planes, trains, ferries, automobiles.
Yeah, it was crazy. But it was a good time. And it was just good to be able to have fun with the people that you enjoy, not worry about what work you're going to do or your bills to be paid. And I think just right in line with the point of this podcast, which is, listen, you only got one life. Actually, I think a nice way for me to now sort of represent what this podcast is about is the sort of energy you bring on vacation, where you get up and you're like, I don't know what this day is going to bring, but I'm trying to maximize my experience, is the sort of energy one should bring to their life every day. Life is short, but it could be filled with adventure. It could be interesting. You don't have to go on vacation to have an amazing good time. And I think essentially, that's how I'm going to sign off, at least from what I'm going to say is live your life like you're on a vacation. Yeah. Have a good time, because you don't have that much time. So you might as well squeeze it for every bit of story you can have, every bit of funny moments, every bit of debauchery and craziness that you can get out of it. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know if I can add anything more to that. So let's wrap it up.
Yeah, good times. And thank you for joining me, even though I had to drag you to join this podcast. But I think it was fun, babe. Thanks for joining. All right, we're done. Off. We should come up with a closing tagline for when we sign up. What should we say? Live your life like it's a vacation. Yeah, that's the tagline. Remember, guys, this is Mack and Bola letting you know to live your life like it's a fucking vacation.
We might have to work on that, but...
Yeah, we should. We should work on that. You're right. Okay, bye.